Hi, scholars. Today we are going to read a new story for part of Unit 9, Week 1, Helping Out. So remember, our essential question this week is how can you help out at home? So let's review that really quickly. And we talked a lot about how you can be a good helper to your family, especially now that we're all staying at home to stay safe. So this week, when we are reading our stories, we are going to continue to practice sequence. Remember, sequence again is when you put the most important story details in order. So we are going to practice what happens in the beginning, what happens in the middle, and what happens in the end. All right, so let's go ahead and get started and read The Little Red Hen. And as we read our story today, I want you to think about the characters and how they were not helpful. And what are the consequences to those characters because they didn't help? So, like at my house, when my kids forget to do one of their chores or something to do to help Mrs. Chin out and they don't do it, then they have a consequence. So, that means like they don't get to watch TV or they don't get to play games on their iPad or they don't get to play Nintendo Switch. So, when you have a responsibility, you have to make sure to do it so that you don't have any consequences. Okay? So let's go ahead and start reading The Little Red Hen. And here she is giving you the little winky eye. Can you give me a winky eye? All right. So once upon a time, there was a little red hen who was a very hard worker. She lived in a little red barn with a noisy black dog, woof, 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 a lazy orange cat, meow, and a rude pink pink. So these are the people that live with the little red hen. One day, the little red hen found some wheat seeds. She knew she could plant the seeds and tall wheat stalks would grow. Then she could cut the wheat and bake bread. But it would be a lot of work. Who will help me plant these seeds? She asked. Not I, barked the noisy black dog. Not I, meowed the lazy orange cat. Not I, oinked the rude pink pig. So are any of her friends from on the farm going to help her out? No. Let's see if there's a pattern in our story. Then I will plant them, said the little red hen, and she did. Weeks passed. The little red hen watched the wheat. First little green sprouts began to grow. Oops, sorry, scholars. The sprouts grew taller and taller. They grew into tall wheat stalks. Finally, the wheat stalks were ready to be cut. The little red hen was excited. Who will help me cut the wheat? She asked. Not I, grumbled the noisy black dog. Not I, purred the lazy orange cat. Not I, grunted the rude pink pig. Then I will cut it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. So again, scholars, are her friends helping her out? No, not so much. Now the little red hen had wheat, but she needed flour to bake the bread. She could take the wheat to the miller who would grind the wheat into flour, but the miller was a walk of many long miles away. Who will help me take the wheat to the miller? She asked. Not I, growled the noisy black dog. Not I, yawned the lazy orange cat. Not I, mumbled the rude pink pig. Then I will take it, said the little red hen, and so she did. So far, scholars, thinking about the order of the story, have we noticed any patterns? I noticed a pattern. I noticed that none of her friends want to help every time Little Red Hen asks them to do something. Do you agree? Thumbs up if you agree. I also noticed that anytime her friends doesn't want to help, what does Little Red Hen do? She just does it herself. Perfect. Okay, so next. The miller ground the wheat into flour. When the little red hen at last arrived home, she was ready to start making bread. First, she had to make bread dough. Who will help me make the dough? She asked. Not I, whined the dog. Not I, hissed the cat. Not I, sighed the pig. Then I will make it, said the little red hen, and so she did. The little red hen mixed the flour with water, yeast, and salt. She kneaded the dough and watched it rise. Finally, it was ready to bake. Who will help me bake the dough? She asked. Not I, muttered the dog. Not I, sniffed the cat. Not I, snorted the pig. Then I will bake it, said the little red hen, and so she did. The smell of baking bread spread all through the house. Finally, the bread was ready. The little red hen took it out of the oven and sliced it into pieces. Who will help me eat the bread? She asked. I will, yelped the dog. I will, smiled the cat. I will, squealed the pig. Now let's stop and let's make a prediction. How many of you think Little Red Hen is going to share her bread? How many of you think Little Red Hen will not share her bread? Okay, so think about it. Would she share her bread with her friends when every time she asked for help, they said no, and she had to do all the work by herself? Do you think she will share? Well, let's find out, scholars. Not so fast, clucked the little red hen. I planted the seeds. I cut the wheat. I took the wheat to the miller. I made the dough and I baked the bread all by myself. And now I will eat it all by myself. And so she did. All right, scholars. So now that we finished the story, do we see the consequences that pig and dog and cat had to face because they didn't want to be very helpful at the home of Little Red Hen? What was their consequence? Did they get to have any bread? Thumbs up if they got any bread. Thumbs down if they didn't get any bread. Right, they didn't get any bread because they were not being helpful friends. So the lesson of the story is if your friends need help, scholars, you should what? Help them. If your family needs help, what should you do? Help them. It is so much better to be kinder and helpful in our world than it is to be mean and unhelpful. All right? So now that we're going to go back and we're going to sequence our story, and let's think, I have some cards here from our story, and let's see if we can put them in order. And then you're going to go ahead and practice the same story map that you did yesterday for Ruby's baby brother. So what happened first in our story? Did Little Red Hen want to plant the seeds, or did she want to eat the bread? Well, the first thing she wanted to do was plant the seeds. So I'm going to take my blue marker and I'm going to label this as number 1. So number 1 is Little Red Hen wanted to plant the seeds. So as she was starting to take care of the seeds, they started to grow. So what did she do next? Little Red Hen ate the bread all by herself, or did she cut the wheat? You are correct, scholars. Number 2 in sequencing is Little Red Hen cut the wheat. Now that she had wheat, she needed to make some flour. So when she wanted to make flour, she had to take it to the millers. So did she eat the bread, or did she take the wheat to the miller? You are correct. Number 3 in story events is Little Red Hen took the wheat to the miller to get it ground. So now that her bread is all, now that she has flour to make the bread, did she make the bread, or did she bake the bread? Thumbs up if you said make the bread. That was the next step. Awesome. So now that her bread is all ready, what did she do next? Did she bake the bread or did she eat the bread? Well, you can't eat the bread unless you bake it. You don't want to eat raw dough. So number 5 is Little Red Hen baked the bread. All right. Now, lastly, scholars, did Little Red Hen eat the bread all by herself or did she share it? So, yes, I'm going to put these two together because she asked her friends who would want to eat the bread, and they all said yes, but Little Red Hen said no because she did all the work and she wanted to eat it all by herself. Okay, so this one can be number 6 altogether. She asked who wanted to eat the bread. They all said yes, but she said no because she did all the work by herself. So this one will be number 6. All right, so I'm going to label this number 6. Okay. All right, scholars, so now it's your turn to hop onto Seesaw and tell me the most important details that you learned about our story today from the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then also to tell me where the setting is of the story and who are our 4 characters. If you remember, you can look. If you don't remember, you can look here in our book, The Little Red Hen. You can find this story on Epic. If you do a search in the search bar, you can type in The Little Red Hen and you will find the story. Okay, scholars? So I hope you enjoyed our story today and remember our lesson that we learned today. It is more kind and more helpful to help our families and our friends instead of being unhelpful and unkind like dog, cat, and pig.